Here comes Mikey. Maybe we'll get him to do it.
That's right. Not Donna's in charge tonight.
Hey, are you going to be here until 8, Mike?
Roughly. Unless
Okay.
dinner's ready sooner. Why? What'd you do?
Well, I just need to assign co-host to somebody just in case there's
no.
actually
no. Oh,
not you.
no.
Okay, I won't. Sorry, man. The weather here is terrible, so I'm actually a little bit paranoid today. Usually I don't really worry about it too much, but it's like tornado warnings in the south of us.
Oh gosh.
Sorry, officer, I had to outrun the tornado I thought I saw.
It's crazy for it being March 10th, you know.
It was mid-60s here, so I finally dug my bike out and did some maintenance and got out and did a couple miles.
Good for you. I was able to get out. My husband and I got out on Sunday for just a quickie, just 100 miles, which is a quickie for us.
Yeah, it's like 45 minutes.
yeah, it is.
I'm so frustrated. I had winter maintenance done on the bike in January, and the guy moved my controls without asking me. And now my clutch lever and brake lever are like so far down that if I try to ride, I'm going to be wrist way high.
Like they're rotated too far down?
Yeah.
Can you watch a YouTube to fix that yourself, Nicole?
I'm just not sure I have the tools to move the clutch lever. I think I have the tools I need to move the brake lever.
Okay.
But not the clutch.
It shouldn't be anything trickier than a screwdriver.
Or like a 10mm socket and a
wrench. That could be.
Depending on what the perch is like.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
but whatever.
I guess it's a moot point.
Just loosen it enough so you, I'm sorry. I said just loosen it enough so you can rotate it. You don't have to take screws, bolts, or whatever out all the way. Right. Just loosen them up a little bit, rotate it to where you want it, and then just set it. It really shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
And if you
I guess it's just kind of a moot point anyway, because I had a biopsy on my face, so I can't put a helmet on right now.
If you need the tools, you can always run to Harbour Freight and get a 10mm socket set or a socket wrench and a thing for
Harbour
a couple
Freight.
bucks.
Yeah, I forgot all about Harbour Freight. Thanks for that suggestion.
The answer to all one-time use tools or even emergency don't want to spend a lot of money tools.
Their magnetic pickup tools are great for picking up cones on the range. They fit just inside the opening on the small cones. They've got I think it's a 30-inch magnetic collapsing pickup tool. They're usually like $4. You wait till you get one of them 20% off coupons, and then you get a coupon for a free gift. So you get the magnetic pickup tool, which lasts about a season. You get it for 20% off, and then you get a free flashlight or free battery tester, and you pay $3 for the thing.
Okay, but I still don't really understand how a magnetic tool picks up cones.
It's got the magnet on the end.
I know.
It's got a magnet on the end.
Yep, that part I got.
The magnet is just the right size to fit in the hole in the official MSF cones. So you push it through, and then you tilt it, and you can pick the cones up. You don't have to bend over. For those of us that are over 3 feet tall.
Okay, so I have never heard that before. Thank you for the explanation. Oh, really? I guess, you know, it's one of those things where I assume that everybody uses the cone sticks that I'm familiar with, which the ones that we all use here have a drywall anchor toggle on the bottom.
We've got those all over also, but I can't carry one of those around with me. My little pickup tool, I shove next to my range cards, next to a towel. I've got a little bag that I carry around, like a hip bag.
So you like that it telescopes open and close?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a rider coach here that makes these really nice machined aluminum ones that are threaded that come apart into pieces that are like that long. I'm not a cone stick user myself, so I don't partake, but those are very much appreciated by many, I think.
Yeah, my back lasts about 2 exercises if I have to bend over and pick up cones.
I think it's a lot easier to carry big cones and little cones when you have a stick for the little cones. Then I seem to be able to be better able to carry big ones and little ones at the same time.
Yeah, I think I've found that too, Rita.
Have you ever, maybe you all do this, have you seen or do somebody figured out a way to put those big cones like on a belt holder. Have you all seen that?
No.
Just
I
put 'em
don't
on my
remember
head.
how they did it exactly, but it was kind of like the same thing where it was some kind of a toggle that held it on a little stick and then it just attached to their belt. That was pretty clever.
Huh.
I don't think you can fit like 14 of them on there, but seemed like it worked for a few.
Just
You
when I
know, it
need
works
more
just as
weight.
And it doesn't fall apart like the extendable ones. Is a 1-inch dowel rod, just a 3-foot 1-inch dowel rod.
Yeah, that's the low rent version of the ones that we have here. Those are the ones that live in our trailers. And then if you want a fancy one, it's
But
gotta be yours.
They last forever though.
They do.
Problem with the toggles is after about half a season, the toggle falls off. Or the
Oh, you gotta
spring breaks.
put a nut on there and then loctate that nut so that it can't move.
Yeah, but the spring breaks and then they don't have the flexiness to them.
Sure. You got it. Maybe we need to find vintage toggles that are made better, right?
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Dennis.
I've also taken to putting shrink tape on, or the tubing that you can shrink with heat on the outside of the wooden dowels, because I have problems with, they get banged around so much at a heavily used site that I end up with slivers.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I didn't know there was heat shrink tubing that's that big, but I guess that makes sense. So clever.
Although I suppose if you were in Arizona, you could just put the tubing around it and it would shrink itself if you taught on a summer day.
That'd be true.
Yeah, no aluminum cone sticks in Arizona because they would burn you.
Absolutely. I have an old MSF clipboard powder coated with like the old skill test stuff on the back, and I can't use it in the summer because you can't pick it up without gloves on.
It's
On the
funny,
bright side, if you get hungry, you can fry an egg on it, right?
it's funny that this is the topic. I just pulled this out of a dumpster.
Is it a dowel?
Yeah, perfect length for a
Awesome.
dump stick.
Awesome.
I spotted it sticking out of a dumpster and went, I can use that.
Pick up stick for the cones. Is that what it is, Rita?
Yeah, just before you signed on, Dennis, we were talking about cone sticks.
Those dowels are real good for hitting people's knuckles when they cover the front brake also.
Something to think about there. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that one.
Don't tell Ron.
Okay. Does Ryan do that too?
I'm sure I signed some sort of policy and procedure that says I won't do that, but
I was going to say we explicitly have it in ours. Do not touch or hit a student. I wonder what happened at some point that we had to put that in there.
somebody hit a student.
So Nicole, your coaches can still throw cones at the students then?
I guess they don't hurt as much if you throw a cone at them.
I suppose that's not expressly forbidden, as far as I know.
Nicole, if I come out in QA, I'll be okay. He threw a cone at a student, not in the policy manual. He's good.
I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to switch devices.
So Laura, did Don give you a list of topics that we're to cover tonight?
He told me that I needed to make sure that I put you on the spot with all of the topics, Mike. What do you want to talk about?
That sounds good to me.
Mike on the spot. Let's talk about that.
Either put Mike on the spot or Ron on the spot if he ever shows up. I haven't been around for a few weeks, so I don't know what's going on.
He's probably out riding. It was mid 60s here today.
That's what it was here in St. Louis.
So if there's no better topic to discuss, a friend sent me a link to a video, and I tried to find it again. I can't find it. It's somewhere buried in my email. A guy on his way to work, riding his motorcycle, stopped at a Walmart to pick up some stuff. On his way out, he got arrested for trespassing. Apparently, he had Bluetooth music going on in his helmet, and he didn't hear the manager or whatever who was following him around asking him to take his helmet off. So the manager called the police, and then the police harassed him for wearing a helmet inside. And I'm thinking, I do that all the time. I was wondering, the cop saying it, it only takes a couple seconds to take a helmet off. So no, it really doesn't though. You got to take your sunglasses off, got to take the helmet off, got to take the earplugs out, then you got to secure the helmet, then you got to put the sunglasses back on, then you got to put a hat on. At least Hendel doesn't have to worry about that. And then you walk in, and if you're just on your way to work, the guy was he picked up like a sandwich, a toothbrush, and a couple other things. And I'm like, I walk into stores all the time with my helmet on.
I do too.
I was just wondering, any opinions?
You're bringing up this topic just a little bit too early. Jason Herheim, when vRETS was in Las Vegas or some trip that he took in the last couple of years on the plane, wore his helmet so he didn't have to add it to his luggage.
I can see that.
That's not unusual. It's happened in other places around the country.
Or put that helmet in a carry-on bag so you don't have to worry about it. It'll fit.
So I guess that begs the question, do places or Walmart in particular, I guess, have policies against wearing a helmet in the store? I mean, I need more information, man.
Well, that seems kind of odd that particular Walmart wouldn't let you wear
A lot of
in there. I guess
have
maybe
policies
the fact
about
as long as you can see his face, why not?
But they,
So you can wear a mask in a bank. You can wear a
that's
mask
right.
in a
You got
bank, but
masks
you
now.
can't wear a helmet in a Walmart.
I'm not sure. A year ago, well, more than a year ago, I would have worn a helmet or a mask into a bank. That's probably the one exception.
It just shows that we have a long way to go and a never-ending battle to educate non-motorcyclists.
I've crossed the border and forgot to take my helmet off, and they let me through.
That's happened to me repeatedly. I've crossed into Canada and
Yeah.
nobody ever said, take your helmet off, because I'm not going to unless prompted, right? Because of all the reasons Mike said, plus I have to like deal with my hair going everywhere then, and it's just kind of a hassle. So
Yeah, I
I
have
crossed
the same
into Canada. I can see that. But they had zero problem recognizing that it was me and or didn't ever ask me to take my helmet off. But then on the way, so that was the Canadian Border Patrol. And then on my way back into the US once, the guy was just like a total jerk about it. So I get there, I turn off my bike because it's really loud. I give him my passport and I sit there and he just sits there and he's giving me a dirty look. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then he made some snarky comment about, take your helmet off or something. Are you going to take that off? And I was like, whoa, buddy. Okay. I think I said to him, all you need to do is use your words. Like, don't be a jerk.
Don't
Every
piss
time
off the border guards.
Every time I've crossed into Canada, both sides always ask me to take the helmet off, and my wife as well.
Really? I've gone across
Yep.
probably 4 or 5 times on a motorcycle, and I flipped the visor up, but I've never had them ask me to take my helmet off.
I think
It happened. I found it happens more often when you cross at the Peace Bridge in Buffalo than if you could use the Rainbow Bridge in Niagara Falls.
I think it just depends on where you're at, which guard it is.
Well, and I think it depends on who the border crossing guy is. My brother right now is overseeing a construction project on a bridge that goes between the US and Canada. He has to cross over the bridge a couple of times a day to make sure the cones are in the right place and all that stuff. And sometimes he crosses over and they're like, "Hi, Kyle, how's it going?" Because he's just going to turn around and go back again. And other times it's, "Where are you going? How long are you going to be there? What's your purpose?" And they go through the whole list, even though they know he's the bridge guy. So I guess it depends on how much of a rule follower they are.
Interesting.
Who wants to control the power at the border?
I wonder if it doesn't have to do with facial recognition with their cameras too.
Could be. I wear a modular when I'm riding on the street, and so I can put the chin bar up. And the several times I've gone to Canada, that's all I've had to do is put the chin bar up. But for a number of years, we went to Mexico a lot. And every single time you go to Mexico, you basically need to take the helmet off and get your paperwork and get your permits. And so there's a whole process that doesn't happen in Canada. So yeah, I think it just really depends on the border.
So if I get trespassed at Walmart wearing a helmet, I'm going to use that as my excuse. The Border Patrol doesn't make me take my helmet off.
Hey, Laura, I hate to say it, that may not fly too well. Depends on the manager of Walmart or the cop.
I don't go to Walmart, so I'm hypothetically
Neither do I.
here.
I go to Target before Walmart.
I've been going into my bank for years with a helmet on. Like I said, I just flip up the chin bar and they don't say a word.
I guess they know you, huh?
They do.
My bank didn't used to mind, but then a few years ago they were robbed. After that one time when I was in there, the teller told me I probably shouldn't wear my helmet into the bank anymore.
What about if you went through the drive-through?
It was hanging up at the post office. I never got that memo though.
So speaking
What
of,
about it?
Go ahead, Keith.
Sorry, thank you. What about a drive-through at the bank?
Well, then you're not in the bank, so I suppose it would be hard to have a holdup from outside.
True, but they're also using their cameras and their facial recognition there, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure banks have facial recognition. They probably have cameras, but yeah. I mean, again,
but back to the original question about Walmart, another reason not to go in there.
Indeed.
So modular helmets were mentioned. What's everyone's thoughts on modular helmets as far as riding on the range, both for demos and for students wearing them and having the chin bar flipped up or not?
State regs here say we have to have the chin bar down whenever we're moving or whenever the students are moving. And when my wife and I teach together, we actually both wear modulars and we have Cardo communicators so we can talk to each other while we're on the range if we have the helmet on. The chin bar helmet has a boom mic in the front, so makes it really easy to communicate.
Well, as far as doing demos myself, I don't wear a full face or modular. That's too claustrophobic for me. I like 3/4. And of course, then if the weather isn't cooperating, I'll have the face shield on.
So I'm actually kind of militant about that, just because there are only those, I think, 2 currently certified for use with the chin bar up. It seems like they're both ones where the chin bar flips all the way kind of to the back of the head. I can't quite remember, but in any case, I really try to make a point to talk about that if it comes up, and or if there's a student that's wearing a modular helmet, and just kind of give them a quick rundown of the whys of that so that they are aware. But I think it's going to get more complicated because I suspect that there's going to be more modular helmets that are introduced that are able to be worn safely with the chin bar not down.
Is there any sort of special DOT sticker on them, on modulars? That say like DOT only when chin bar down, or a label on the inside or anything like that?
No, because DOT doesn't test chin bars.
Yeah, they do.
It's Snell that doesn't, I thought.
Yeah, Snell doesn't pass chin bars. I have a DOT and an ECE sticker on my new HJC.
Okay, hang on though. Snell does not, saying that Snell does not pass chin bars is a misstatement. Snell will certify anything that can pass the Snell test. The reason that there are no Snell certified helmets that are modular is because none of them either have been put forth for testing or none of them can pass the test. But the DOT test does not do a chin bar impact.
Well, oh, sure. But Snell, I know in the racing group that I belong to, Snell certification is required on the helmets, but they will not allow a chin bar, whether it says Snell or not. So.
A modular, you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
That's your racing league, Murray, but that's correct. I mean, if somebody submitted modular helmets for testing, Snell would test them. But I agree with you. Most of the modular helmets are only DOT approved with the chin bar down. They don't have any certification with the chin bar up.
Nothing with the chin bar up. Correct.
Well, DOT standards, when you visit the FMV, SS website and read the standards, the areas of impact they check are on the shell of the helmet, basically a little bit more than a half shell, it is all that's required. It doesn't matter whatever else is on the helmet. It still would pass DOT certification because the lower skull area down alongside the jaw pivots, the entire chin bar, that's not part of the testing area for DOT, where other organizations test whatever is there.
Well, and except for the helmets you mentioned, the manufacturers themselves say when you're riding, the chin bar should be down. So, that's just as good, in my opinion, as an argument.
Yeah, that's what I point out to the students who want to ride with it up. I said, what's the label say on the inside of the chin bar? And then I'll usually ask why they think it's that way. And they all realize that if they were to fall and that chin bar were to hit something on the way down, that all that torque would be delivered into their neck.
Yeah, the FMVSS 218 standard only does one impact towards the top of the helmet. So where Snell does multiple impacts at various spaces above the ear, all around the whole circumference of the helmet. And that's a big difference.
Chin bar if it's a full face helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a British organization, SHARP, S-H-A-R-P, that does testing, and they have a pretty interesting website because they actually have graphics from each helmet indicating how well or how little shock was transmitted through, basically green, yellow, red. And one of the things that's interesting on their test for modular helmets is they indicate how many hits it took to pop the chin bar open.
The other thing I like about Sharp, which is based in the UK, is they actually give you an economic return based on the value of the helmet and the protection it offers. They give it a rating and they take into account how much the helmet costs.
Somebody throw a link to that website in the chat. I'd love to check that out. Or is it just sharp.uk or something like that?
I'll look for it.
Thank you.
Might be like sharp.co.uk or something. Yeah, the only downside with the Sharp ratings are we don't know that the helmet we're getting here is exactly the same as the one that they're getting there.
The US ones have big walls around them.
Possibly.
Yeah, I found it for you.
Thank you.
I think it's a good site to go to when you're making shopping decisions, that's for sure.
And Virginia Tech has a site that has a really nice ratings, easy to understand ratings for bicycle helmets, but I don't think they have their motorcycle helmet stuff up yet, at least not last I looked.
Does that mean that's
If you
something
ever-
that is coming, Mark?
That's what I've heard, but I haven't actually seen it. But the bicycle ratings are pretty comprehensive.
If you ever get the opportunity to get to Snell Labs and watch them do testing, it's pretty interesting to see how they do it. And when they submit the helmets for testing, they submit 5 helmets. 4 of the helmets are destroyed during the testing, and the 5th helmet is a reference standard that they go against for all other evaluations. And when they go through that testing, the final test on the helmets is a Pierce test with this, like, I think like 5-pound weight with a kind of a needle point drop from like 2 stories. And it's to see Pierce protection on the shell of the helmet. Nothing survives it.
Which one, Mike?
I picked up a Bell Star MIPS fancy something or other that I bought a VMAR years ago, and I will never buy a VMAR helmet again. I'm sorry. Biggest piece of crap for what I paid for that damn thing. It was when it was a full carbon helmet, and it was on sale through one of the websites. So I gave it a shot and started having issues with it from about week 1. Like the cheek pads wouldn't stay in place, so I super glued the cheek pads in place. And after a couple of years, the chin strap started shredding. So I'm like, you know what? It's time to replace the damn thing. So I picked one up. I picked up a Bell in December. I've never had a Bell before, but figured I'd give it a shot.
I've had really good luck with Bells, and the nice thing about Bell, at least for me, I had to return one of my helmets for a warranty repair on it, and the location that they shipped it from, or they shipped it to and from, is only about 70 miles from here. So they're based out of Rantoul, Illinois.
Back in 1981, when I took my first rider course as a student, the 2 instructors were cops, and they had a cheapo plastic helmet, and they had a good helmet for, a Bell helmet as it was for demonstration purposes. And they said, well, this is what can happen with the cheap plastic helmet. And the guy dropped it on the floor, and it bounced back up into his hands like a basketball. And he says, he took the Bell helmet and he dropped it on the floor, and it went thud, and it just stayed there. And he's like, do you want your helmet to head to bounce down the road, or do you want it to hit the ground and stay there? And I was like, interesting. So it was a interesting way of presenting quality helmet. I've not done that myself, but it's stuck in my head,
I've got a stack of old helmets. I may as well try that trick with and see what happens. I've got a couple HJCs, a couple Scorpions. I got that VMAR. May as well see what the hell happens. I'll report back to you all.
Sometimes the visual makes all the difference. I was at a training once, and they were talking about the Challenger explosion, whichever one had the O-ring problem. And they were explaining that the scientist who knew that the O-ring would get brittle and break at certain temperatures, at cold temperatures, tried to explain to the people making the launch, no launch decisions in detail from a scientific standpoint why they shouldn't launch. And he was completely accurate. However, the listeners did not get the point. And the training I was at, the trainer said, had he just taken the O-ring and stuck it in a glass of ice water and tapped it on the table to show, hey, this is what's going to happen. It's going to break into 1,000 pieces. That simple thing probably would have convinced the people to go, yeah, no launch. So, you know, that's the addressing all the different types of learners.
Coincidentally, that scientist died today. I saw on the news.
Or a couple days ago, I think, because I saw it a couple days ago. But yeah, he just died.
So clearly watch your dumpsters for cone sticks is what I'm hearing.
Speaking of helmets, this may not be news to most of you. I recently bought a new Shoei helmet and they gave me a 30% discount off the retail price through MSF.
I have also taken advantage of that Shoei discount. That's nice. And Arise is actually 50, but cost-wise, they work out to be about the same after everything is said and done. And Shoei's are way faster to get because Arai custom makes them for us.
I'll have to remember that because I like Shoei helmets. Because the last one I bought it from a dealership where I teach classes, so I get 20% there. I'll take 30% from Shoei next time.
Or you have to buy them direct from the manufacturer or something?
Yeah, Don Bailey is the technical contact at Shoei. Write to him and he'll give you the, and they have a distributor that they use that drop ship them to you directly. I got it within 2 days, I think.
Huh. Oh, that's good.
I go to my
I won't
local.
need another helmet for a couple of years, but I'll keep that in mind.
I'll have to remember that.
I go to my local Cycle Gear and get them there for 35%. My local Cycle Gear gives me 35% off.
Yep.
I don't got no Cycle Gear around here nowhere.
We just got one, and so I hadn't heard that before, Keith. Is that a rider coach discount or some kind of?
Yeah, they'll give you. They'll take your card. They'll register you in the system, in their system. So any Cycle Gear that you go to, normally around here, the students' first trip there, they give them, I want to say it's like 15 or 20% off. Coaches, they'll give us 30. The local manager here, I've been doing business with him for a long time. He gives me 35. So friends of mine that have gone in, I've said, you know, Mike, can you help him out? He'll do the 35% off for them also.
I've bought from Cycle Gear before as well, and they give me a discount too as a rider coach.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Your updated certification card, and they put it in the system just like you said there, Keith.
That seems to be standard across the country. And the last show I bought, they emailed me a form that I filled out and emailed back to them, and then was able to purchase that way.
Yeah, they did it right there online with me at the store. And I checked that website that Mike put out. They only list the GT Air. They don't list the GT Air 2. And they gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So I'll take it.
I posted the link to the Cycle Gear program in chat. They will register you. You're getting a better deal than most will, probably because you know the manager there, but it's 30% off their brands and I think 15% off other brands. Generally.
Yeah, he'll give me 30, 35% off anything in there. I don't buy tires from him, but any gear or anything like that gives me a pretty good deal on it.
Can I give you a shopping list, Keith?
Yeah, the shipping might offset it. Or the other thing too, it's supposed to be a nice day. You want to take a ride up from Connecticut. I'm outside. I'm just north of Boston.
Oh.
I can't change my iPad to show my.
It's kind of a far right for me.
Location for whatever reason.
Are you in New Hampshire, Keith?
No, I'm just outside of Boston. I'm about 15 miles north of Boston. Right now, I'm sitting at my sister's house outside of south of Worcester on the Rhode Island line.
What town are you normally in?
Wilmington.
Oh, that's right. We had that discussion before.
Yeah, we had that discussion before. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but right now I'm in a little town called Douglas, Mass.
Yeah, my bastard little brother in the
backyard.
My bastard little brother in Wilmington sent me a picture. He took the afternoon off, took his convertible for a ride, and got lobster sandwiches somewhere.
Nice.
You little bastard.
What's he got for a convertible?
He just picked up a C8 Corvette.
Yeah. There's a 72 Challenger with a 440 sitting in the garage here if he wants to go fight.
Yeah, I'll give him $500 for it.
Put a 4 in front of that and 3 zeros after it, and you're getting warm.
I don't have that much money. I'm just a retired government employee.
I'm 2 years out.
Yeah, I told my brother I'd get interested in a Corvette when it's got the power to weight ratio of my sport bike.
It's close.
No, not even.
No. Which sport bike?
ZX14. 450-pound bike with 200 horsepower. Corvette ain't coming close. And it can put the power down.
A friend of
Buddy of
mine,
mine-
wife.
Buddy of mine just bought a new Hayabusa, the new one. He ordered it. Haven't seen it yet.
Got some really mixed reviews on it, but I've never liked the seating position on those. I like the Kawasaki a lot better.
A friend of mine's wife bought a Corvette. He bought a Corvette for his wife that she had her eye on, and it was on the lot for like a long time. It was an older one. And so she's all happy. She's got her Corvette convertible. And you know what? It's hard getting in and out of that thing. I think I'm too old for a Corvette. Not that I would get one.
Some of them are.
No, you're not.
When there's a will, there's a way.
That's right.
I keep
just
thinking
gotta
about
bring
getting
a
new
yoga
Mustang
mat.
for myself. That was the first new car I ever had, but getting in and out, I'd have to get used to.
Just bring a yoga mat and put that down on the ground and kind of roll yourself out.
Grace isn't here.
I remember many, many years ago, there was a Lotus dealer in Rochester. I stopped in one day, managed to squeeze myself into a little Lotus of some sort. And I'm feeling around trying to find the pedals and I couldn't find them. So the dealer stuck his head on my lap, looked down and said, "Your foot's covering all three." Like, well, that's got to be an issue of some sort.
So does anybody want to talk about the vRETS from this week? Because that's
been
pretty
waiting for
much
someone
stuck
to
with
say
me.
I've
Go
been waiting
ahead,
for
Jeff.
that.
I never got the memo on vRETS.
So I came in about 2 minutes after it started. I was a little slow on the draw because I was at work. And I'll tell you, it's deep and wide, the information that they presented in that. And there's a lot of angles to it. But I have to say, I believe that there was one omission from the report. It said nothing about how being loud didn't help. How
He
many
did
other
give his
people
email
saw the
address if
VRETS?
you want to shoot him an email and ask him which bikes had straight pipes.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to go that far down the road with it, but
It would actually be interesting to see if they even bothered to look what equipment was on the bikes.
I have to say that from what I read in the details of the report, they were barely 10 seconds into the ride. That's how quickly things happened.
It was just unreal.
The other thing hi Jeff.
Thank you.
One of the things I found interesting in it was that, in the motorcycling community, 100 million% of the blame was put on the truck driver. Okay, the guy crossed the road, but all of these people had alcohol in their system. The lead rider,
the
lead rider
he was the worst.
was over the legal limit for alcohol. And he was right on the yellow line. Could he have avoided it? I don't know. I'm not going to second guess anything. It's terrible that these people were killed. But like Jeff said, there's a lot more going on here than what we were initially told. You know, and of course, the motorcycling community on social media blew it all up that, you know, they wanted to string the guy up, they wanted to do this, that, the other thing to him, and all of this. Yeah, and it's a terrible company and everything else that goes along with it. But how much of the blame goes on the motorcyclist from that? You know, like Jeff said, they were 10 seconds into it. They were less than a quarter of a mile up the road from where they left the hotel. You know, they're still getting staggered. Jeff, tell me when I go wrong here. Wasn't one of them wearing a novelty helmet and the other ones were DOT helmets?
Right. The report indicated that there were several riders who did not have DOT compliant helmets. That was the way they delineated it. And
New Hampshire is a non-helmet state.
Right, and that's the other thing.
Is a helmet optional
several
state.
riders who didn't have helmets because New Hampshire allows both passengers and riders to not wear a helmet. I know that Rhode Island requires the passenger to have a helmet the last I checked. Has that changed, Keith? Do you know?
I say the big thing that caught my attention is he mentioned several of the riders were over the legal limit for alcohol.
What I remember was that the lead rider was clearly over the limit. There were two other riders who were flirting with that limit of 0.08 grams per deciliter, I guess is the metric that they used. One was 0.7 something and another one was 0.6 something. It was basically, you know, they'd had a drink maybe an hour before they got on the bike kind of thing. And I'm sorry, just, you know, if you're going to have a drink, then maybe riding's not the thing you should be doing today. So it was a terrible interaction of factors in all the worst possible ways, all converging in one place and time. I feel a little embarrassed for Keith and myself being from the state of Massachusetts, because the registry in Massachusetts played a kind of a pivotal role in that situation actually being allowed to happen through, you know, bureaucratic sitting on their hands instead of getting their work done. Anybody who's been to the Massachusetts registry might hear or make comments about how slow things are to get done at the registry. But the report puts it in pretty clear terms how unfortunate the mismanagement was in that part of it. I know that there was a pretty big clean out of staff as a result of that whole incident, but I think the state is, you know, going to have to work pretty hard to repair its image.
Well, they found this is pretty embarrassing. The study found that there was over 5,000 licenses that should have been suspended in Massachusetts that were not suspended. 5,000.
An inexcusable number.
I wonder if you did an audit on other states, what you would find. But I truly doubt Massachusetts is unique in that experience.
Well, he went on to say that in addition to the 5,000 licenses that should have been suspended, he said there were a total of 20,000 communications from other states, you know, regarding point violations and infractions and all that sort of stuff. So.
That's because you get a good attorney that can whittle that original complaint to get you for something lesser than what it was, from a DUI down to possibly jaywalking.
Well, just back in the day, the states never really communicated, because I know when I got my first driver's license in Massachusetts, and I came out to New York for college, and nothing that happened to me in New York ever showed up on my Massachusetts license. So then nicely, when I switched from Massachusetts to New York, I had a clean license. Never had an issue.
Well, that is why they created the CDL system, because truck drivers would lose their licenses and get new licenses in other states. Now a truck driver's license is essentially a national license.
Yeah, I had a CDL briefly in New York, but never in Massachusetts. And actually, that did show up on my thing that I had to submit when I applied to be a rider coach. I totally forgot about that I had a CDL back in the early 90s.
I've had a CDL for 22 years. That's my job. So,
I needed a CDL to carry, I think it was more than 10 passengers or something at one point when I was working for an ambulance company.
yeah.
So I had to get in New York, it was a CDL-C. I don't know if it still is, with a gazillion restrictions. And it showed up on my, whatever the transcript is called, that I had to submit when I applied to be a rider coach.
Is that the end of the discussion on the NTSB findings?
I'm pasting the link to the NTSB website page that provides a cursory overview. And if you look to the right-hand side, there are some PDFs there that give more of the details that we've been discussing. They did talk about the quality of helmets in a number of ways and mentioned other standards and talked about the value of ABS for the riders who were able to stop successfully. At least two of the riders, they were able to attribute the quality of their control of their bike was improved by having ABS. They're wanting to have ABS be a requirement for all bikes sold in the US, but I think it's going to be an uphill push to get everybody to buy into it. I've never owned a bike with ABS. I don't know that I would be uncomfortable with it, but I've managed thus far for a while in my riding career to not have any major issues without it, but that's just me.
You know, I have an FJR and it has ABS, and it's my first bike with ABS. And I found that, you know, for riding around in the street, it's fine. It very seldom engages, but you know, I'm in a rural area and sometimes there's paved roads and there's unpaved roads. And if I find myself on an unpaved road, the ABS actually extends my stop by not letting the skid take place, you know, so I kind of have to factor that in. I can't turn it off on my model. I don't know if that's a feature on newer ones, but you know, if they do make it mandatory, I think it'd be nice to have the option to switch it off.
What year is your FJR, Lynn?
It's an 05.
Yeah, the systems have evolved a lot since then. A lot of even the newest systems are basic. You can't even tell when the ABS kicks on. Not like the good old days with cars when you can actually feel like everything pulsing. My KTM has ABS and it's a 13. And the only time I've gotten to kick on the road was when I took the advanced rider class during the quick stops. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Let me turn that off and see what it's like. But yeah, on dirt roads, it's another story. Or in snow, which I tried today. I've always wanted to ride my bike in snow to see how it would do. And so the first thing, I went down to a church down the street, has a big open parking lot. And they had some snowbank in the corner that had melted down. So I did a couple passes through the snowbank for fun.
Years ago, I had a friend in New York City. She was also a rider coach, but not at the time the incident took place. It snowed a bunch and she was on her bike and the streets had become all packed down and were a sheet of ice. She's trying to get home from work. And so she rode on the sidewalk because it was fresh snow and she was able to get a little bit of traction. And a cop stopped her and said, what are you riding on the sidewalk for? And she's like, I've got no traction on the street. This is the only way I can get home. He's like, okay, and let her go.
Yeah, I see Jason's on now. He can tell us what happened when he tried to rob a bank with his helmet on. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, fly with his helmet on.
I did not rob a bank. Jesus.
That we know of.
So, well, duh. I have a helmet with a mirrored shield. So flying with your helmet on, because I wasn't 100% sure if you could check a helmet and throw it under the seat. I just put it on my head, and of course I had other passengers coming by. What are you doing? I'm like, surviving. And I had people like just really taken aback by that whole, like, what do you mean? Like, you know, have a sense of humor. But I needed to fly somewhere, and I wasn't putting somebody else's helmet on my head because I'm kind of weird like that. So I brought it with me. I don't know. It was an interesting thing in the airport, but not really a big deal. And it turns out that you can totally fly with your helmet as carry-on baggage.
Did you have to put it through the X-ray, or did you just walk through the metal detector with it?
No, it went through on the conveyor belt.
Okay.
So I guess if somebody's going to tell me that has broken down the impact protection of my helmet, sure, could be. But yeah, I put on the belt like everything else.
Probably not.
I wouldn't think it would be at a detectable level. As disturbing as getting onto an airplane with a helmet might be, there's one time I was flying and I was standing in line to get onto the plane behind a woman who had a very odd-shaped backpack on. So I'm looking at the backpack and I noticed, oh, the backpack has leg straps. So I tapped her on the shoulder. I said, "It's not just a backpack, is it? There's a parachute in there, isn't there?" I said, "Yeah, you know, I do whatever, and you know, it's a very expensive thing, and I wasn't about to trust somebody to check it." So I talked to her. It was like a $7,000 or $8,000 parachute, and this was 25 years ago. So I don't know what parachutes go for these days, but it's funny getting onto a commercial airplane with a parachute on. It's like she's prepared, or she's related to DB Cooper, one of the two.
I was going to say, is that maybe DB Cooper's wife or something?
Did you sit next to her?
No, she was a couple rows behind me. I figured in case of emergency, I was going to grab onto the straps of that parachute. We'd both be okay.
I did that. I was going to say, I did that for years. And the problem was when the TCA goes in and tries to inspect it and they deploy the spring powered reserve, and then you have parachute fabric all over and you're trying to repack it and you can't do it without tools. Oh. And it kind of screws things up when you leave it in the luggage. But yeah.
I've got one range on this side of campus and the other range is on the other side of campus, and they're connected by a road where you can kind of, walk through the campus area on foot. But sometimes I have to just go grab a tool or something from the other range. So I'll hop in my car and I'll still have my helmet on. I'll just kind of hunker down. I always feel like I'm on a rally or something. So I sneak around the back end of the campus. I barely fit in my car with my helmet on.
Why don't you just get on a range bike and take a ride?
Because I try not to ride my bike all over campus. It's not what it's there for.
What about a range bike? Can you ride a range?
That's what I'm talking about. I'll transport bikes from one range to the other when I have to, but I'm sure campus security would prefer that I don't ride back and forth willy-nilly.
Well, if you would stop doing those giant wheelies, Lynn, geez.
Yeah, those BN 125s, woo-woo.
A GN 125?
BN, Kawasaki.
Oh. I've actually had a GN 125 go airborne, straight up.
Oh yeah, they were very wheelie prone back in the day. We had a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Nice little bikes though, but they
still got a couple of them.
Easily. Yep, they're good.
Yeah, they don't die.
So I've seen a TU do a wheelie, but can't imagine the BN's doing a wheelie.
I have a question since there's a lull in the action here. I've been invited to be an instructor for the Harley-Davidson Riding Academy in Connecticut. And that would be acting as an independent contractor. Currently in Connecticut, all the training is done through the community colleges, with the exception of this private institution. And we are all state employees. So our risk of being sued is pretty low for anything that we might do as an instructor being a state employee, because anybody who wants to sue the state or a state employee has to go before the Senate and the legislature and get permission to do that. I don't know how many others here are independent contractors, and do you have any concerns about, being sued because you're an independent contractor? Or do you carry your own liability insurance?
I've never heard that one before there, Tony, because a couple of places I teach at, I'm an independent contractor. Other places I teach at, I'm an employee. But I've never had an issue where somebody wanted to sue me. Thankfully, I've never had one that's somebody and a student that's had a serious injury of sort. That seems kind of, I guess, counterproductive, if you want to call it, about independent contractor, the one state or one location versus another.
Well, one is private and one is, instituted by the state. But I mean, I asked because I was an independent contractor for years, as working for other contractors, and I had to carry my own liability insurance and that sort of stuff.
Let's see if I can make this make sense. Here in New Mexico, state coaches are employees of MSF, or they're paid through Irvine, so taxes are taken out and blah, blah, blah. There's only one Riding Academy program left, and I'm not sure, I haven't asked to see what they're doing, but one thing I can tell you for sure, if you're an independent contractor, at least in New Mexico, you aren't covered by workman's comp. So that's an issue. There's a tax liability because if you're an independent contractor, you fall into the gross receipts category for taxes.
Social Security, you pay twice.
Yeah, Social Security you pay twice. But my understanding from talking with the MSF is that we were covered under the MSF insurance for the site and being rider coaches and whatever else if we were using that insurance. I've always had my own liability insurance for other reasons, but it just covers me in whatever coaching situation I'm in. So it's just prudent. And if you can find it, you can get, I think I have $2 million in liability insurance, and it costs me $300 a year. So to me, that's a no-brainer.
Has anybody ever been sued? Anybody that's on this been sued for something that happened while you were an instructor?
No, I never have been, thankfully.
Yeah.
Being successfully?
Yeah, I've been sued. I was included in a lawsuit once, but it wasn't a successful lawsuit.
Was that because of something that happened at a range?
Yes. A student who we had trouble with speed most of the day and trying to get them to quiet down. This is in the old curriculum, came up to the swerve evaluation and rolled into the swerve at about 25 and grabbed the front brake as soon as he went by the cones and low-sided and broke his collarbone. And we offered to call him an ambulance, you know, blah, blah, blah. He said, no, I'll drive myself. I had the conversation about insurance papers. He came in a week later. We filled out all the paperwork, sent it in, and 3 days before the ability to sue ran out, we got a letter from an attorney that he was suing us, suing the dealership.
Wow.
So,
wow.
But
Yeah,
Jim,
that would.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Murray. I was going to say it wouldn't be uncommon for the instructor staff to be, included in the lawsuit.
Sure.
And whether it's successful or not is kind of irrelevant, because if you do get named, now you're ponying up for an attorney to defend you, or at least file the paperwork on your behalf.
I've
been an instructor. I've been an instructor for 25 years. This is the first I've ever heard of anybody being sued.
Well, the dealership was sued, and we were included in the package with the dealership and the MSF and everybody else. We were just one of the named people being sued. And what I can tell you, general reference for everybody out there, is, boy, make sure that your incident reports are filled out completely, and make sure you read the cards, because when we went to the arbitrator who was a retired judge said, this, what happened? And I opened up the range cards and said, this is our procedure. We follow it every single time. And what the person who was suing said was that we pulled him up. He took off. He had a run up of almost 200 feet to the swerve box. We told him to speed up, and then we didn't indicate which way he was supposed to swerve on the eval. And so having those cards there, having the incident report there filled out, basically dropped the lawsuit from a little over $250,000. MSF paid him 12 grand to just be nice about it. So yeah, do your paperwork, read the cards. Follow procedure. Do not get off the curriculum.
Murray, that's one thing I learned a long time ago with coaching is read the cards and fill out the incident reports as soon as you possibly can after the incident, or at least the bare minimum of the incident.
Yep. Well, and the interesting thing these days, these are great for incident reporting. You put them on voice record and you talk into it, and you have the students say what happened, and then you flip it around and take a picture of the motorcycle. It's all right there.
Yeah, that is true.
Yep.
Good idea.
Download it into a file.
I do the exact same thing. I have a voice record app on my home screen during the coaching season, and I take a picture of every single downed motorcycle, and if necessary, pictures of the rider's jeans, scuffed jeans, torn jeans, whatever, damage to helmets, anything like that.
Yeah, well,
we have been warned against using our cell phones to do anything like that, because it then we're told it then becomes discoverable, and they can seize your phone to take what they need off of it.
This is true.
Yeah, well, it's a two-way sword. I mean, what I do is I scan and email the incident reports to the MSF and a copy to the state, and I just drop the photos and the voice stuff into the file and send it all. We get kind of quirky here about incident reports. You don't have to fall down to have an incident report written about what happened to you on the range. If it's reason we started doing that is we had a doctor years ago who put his foot down really hard, and we asked him about it, and he said, no, I'm okay, and I'm fine. And we filled out an incident report anyway. 6 weeks later, he called me and said he had some kind of fractures. I forget what you call it now. It's like a splinter fracture in one of his lower leg bones. So, I just take the time to do the paperwork for your programs. It's just well worth it.
So that brings up a question. How do you all define an incident in your program? When do you have to report an incident?
We do it by anytime anything other than the student's shoes or tires touch the ground. That's pretty much the rule. And then we added in a couple of years ago, we added in that if a student loses control and they kind of flip around and you put their feet down 2 or 3 times and regain control and stop, we'll still write an incident report about them losing control, because, you know, those hitting the ground with your foot sideways or anything like that can come up later. I tore a meniscus doing an advanced rider course, and I didn't know it until 2 days later.
It's really better to have the report and not need it than to need it and not have it. You know, it's a few minutes well spent.
Yep.
Absolutely. I had a student crash during stopping more quickly. She grabbed a too much front brake and washed the front end and went down and picked the bike back. You know, are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? We wrote a incident report, you know, when we finished the day 1 range. Picked the bike back up. She continued to ride, stated that she was okay, showed up the next day, said, yeah, I'm a little sore, I'm okay. Texted me Tuesday, 2 days later, yep, went to the doctor, broken collarbone. She was badass. I picked the bike back up for her, but she got after it, and two cycles later in stopping more quickly, she was right back on the front brake, good and solid and smooth, and hauling the bike down, and rode all day Sunday with a broken collarbone. For those that aren't watching the chat, Sarah Kretschmer just said, anytime there's a possibility of injury to a human or damage to the motorcycle, that's when we write incident reports.
I think it's time for a beer here. I'll see you guys in a second.
I need more wine, so I'm gonna have to depart and go get some more.
I came prepared. I brought a margarita with me.
Maybe we could do that sometime on a tribe talk, is talk about accidents that we've had on the range. You know, the GN 125 wheelies, or you know, somebody hitting a curb and breaking their ankle, and you're trying to explain to them, don't take your boot off, don't take your boot off. And then you watch it explode when they take the boot off. You know, survivable stuff, nothing where, you know,
but just for protocol, I have a really hard time with the term accident. You know, accident is when you got struck by.
You want to go crash, or do you want to go mishap?
Incident.
I prefer
That's
incident.
why they call them incidents. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
There's an incident.
Yeah.
Oh, give us a warning there.
Well, it's just been my firm belief.
FYI, guys, you're going to get flagged on Facebook for that.
Yeah. Can we turn off the share?
It's not a kickstand, is it?
Sorry, I'm on another call, but I looked down and that's the first thing I was thinking. And I was like, oh, Facebook's going to flag you.
It's a kielbasa. That's all it is.
It's germane.
What the hell did I just look at?
But yeah.
Somebody's shin. Yeah.
Looked like a rib sandwich to me.
It was a serious
somebody's shin bone.
Yeah.
No, there was no bone in that picture. It's just a surface. It's a bruise. Take a lap. It'll walk it off.
I'm trying to eat Mexican food here.
It's a flesh
dirt on it. Yeah, put some dirt on it. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Now, I just don't like accident because I have a firm belief that the last person who can do something to change the outcome of an incident with vehicles is a person who's holding the handlebars. And so based on that, to me, they're all incidents.
Choices.
To go back slightly on topic to what Tony was asking about with liability, the MSF policy that exists on the RiderChoices library right now says that it is not the entire contract, and should you wish to look at it, you should go out and request one. And I'm guessing Lori Longville, whose last name I believe changed, is the person that's in charge of the insurance bits over there. And it does say it includes some professional liability coverage, but based on the what do you want to call it, vRETS stuff that I've been a part of and talked to, none of the advice is going to change exactly what Murray said. But the MSF professional liability coverage, in my opinion, is going to start and end with, did you read the cards? And if the answer is no, you're on your own. But what that is not, and what it explicitly says it is not in this coverage and policy, is in any way, shape, or form a general liability coverage, which when you get into the weirdness of anything that didn't happen as part of the range that you happen to be there so you get named in, that's not what that coverage is for. And in the state that I'm in, we're required to have general liability coverage for our business. MSF does not offer that. And when I say MSF doesn't offer that, if you look at it, MSF doesn't offer insurance anyways. They're merely have somebody that does provide it that you kind of buy through MSF. And of course, they're named as an additional insured on everything. So be careful, know what you're doing. And if Murray's right and it's $300, I guess the question is going to be, do you make enough money doing riding academy classes to make it worth your while to pick up $300 worth of insurance coverage, if that truly is it? And that's not too bad. I mean, but prior to me going out on my own and getting liability coverage, and everybody that works with me is an employee specifically so that they can be covered under my general liability policy, it becomes worthwhile. But when we have contractors, and as others were mentioning, I think Lynn and others said, yeah, hey, if you're 1099, of course you're paying both ends of that, the FICA business. And there's a few other things. It's really about the state getting the money for the unemployment pool, a little bit with the federal unemployment pool, but it's generally about taxes. In Wisconsin, I am 100% convinced that based on the DWD's definition of what's going on how to be a contractor versus an employee, there's no way in hell that MSF coaches are contractors. Because the moment you either attend training, go to a mandatory meeting, or provided tools to do your job, like motorcycles, you're no longer a contractor. So that in our state, and I know it's different than other states, so check it out. But if Murray's right and it's a couple $100, I just hope you're making enough money at Riding Academy that's totally worth that. Because Riding Academy sounds fun. Learning stuff and working with new people sounds like a good thing. But yeah, it shouldn't cost you money to do it. There's my 3 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, just be smart. I mean, here in New Mexico, Jason's right in that some of the definitions get into gray areas when you go to required events, especially if you get paid to go to those required events, then that puts you in a gray area and you could technically be called a part-time employee. So, the dealerships that I know that I knew that were doing contract work were very careful about how they structured all that stuff. But yeah, just be smart, guys. It's like buying motorcycle insurance. Be smart. If somebody gets a hold of me, I can give them the information on the underwriter and who the broker is that I deal with. So sure.
So Tony, let me ask you a question about that. what do you know about the Riding Academy, and are you interested in doing it?
Sorry, I was muted. So those MSF instructors that work for this particular Harley Davidson Riding Academy are paid and designated as independent contractors. And, you know, I've been in business most of my life, and I know as an independent contractor, you know, if something gets screwed up, I mean, whoever you're contracted with is going to be pointing fingers in all sorts of directions. And you being in the instructor is probably, you know, going to be one of the first places going to put is somebody gets hurt. And then now, you know, you have to defend yourself, or at least put in your appearances, you know, in court. You may not be the deepest pocket for sure. You know, they'd likely sue the dealer, they'd likely sue the owner, the manufacturer of the motorcycle, and the owner of the property where the range is on, and, you know, everybody would get netted in. But I was just curious how, you know, other members of the community either have addressed that or not addressed that. On the state side, boy, I'm better than being insured because I'm protected in so many different ways on the state level. But I know there are a lot of other instructors here that work for the Harley Davidson Riding Academy, and I was just wondering if it ever came up, or, you know, if it was a discussion worth having for the community as a whole.
Well, the dealership where I was the Riding Academy manager and a rider coach went back and forth between independent contracting and having people be employees. And I'm pretty sure they eventually got to the point where it just made sense to have everybody be an employee. Literally made the most sense. And in both cases, they increased the amount of pay to either, when they were independent contractors, that helped offset the cost of the liability insurance, and when they were employees, it helped offset the tax hit. So yeah, it really depends. Just need to talk to the dealership, because if I were an independent contractor working for someone and I got sued over something, guess who would get sued almost immediately by me? Would be the people that had contracted me and not offered me protection. So there's just a lot of stuff at play there.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, the other thing is, if you get insurance for yourself, liability insurance, what my accountant said was, I said, well, should I do an LLC? And he said, no, you're an individual and it's small. He said, just make sure you have enough insurance that it encompasses and exceeds your net worth.
Yeah, and then the tax issues aside, I mean, you know, if you are an independent contractor, then certainly you can write off, you know, your travel time, your gear, whatever else you're using to teach, motorcycle wear and tear, mileage, and all that kind of stuff. If it's worth it, if you're, you know, if you're doing that much teaching, you're traveling that far, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're just, you know, worth that trouble or not. But I was concerned more about the liability if something goes wrong. I mean, I've had a few people crash at this particular dealership. They had a guy take off on one of the, you know, Road 500s, crash into the side of a trailer that was parked on the property at pretty good speed, totaled the bike, and castrated himself at the same time.
Did all the men in the group just kind of go, ouch?
I probably would have quit the class right then and there.
Yeah.
Hopefully the kickstand survived.
Well, something sounds a little amiss there because they have limiters in first and second gear that even if you whiskey throttle it, it's hard to get over 18, 19 miles an hour on the bike at full throttle unless you shift to third gear. So, but I've seen them go over on the orange bars and skip about 150 feet. So they can get up some steam. It's a big bike.
Yeah, it is. I've seen the bike. The bike is under a tarp in the back of the shop.
They're heavy.
Yeah, it's totaled.
Yeah, well, if you're part of the Harley lifestyle, quote unquote, it probably makes sense to train on that because a lot of those folks are going to go buy Softails or road glides or, something that's even heavier than a training bike. So
we've got 2 containers, well, 3 containers up on one of the ranges. One of them is just full of the 500s for the Harley classes. They're very heavy and they're top heavy. Unlike the rest of the Harley family where the weight's lower, these are top heavy. I'm not a big fan of them. And their foot controls and the positions are like the old Nighthawks, where you really got to pay attention to get your foot under the shifter, to do the upshift or anything like that. But like you said, Murray, the one advantage is where they do have the limiters that you can put on them. As far as, you're not going to whiskey throttle it as easily, but they're just really, really heavy bikes.
That and the foot pegs are wide. So if you're, 6 feet tall and you're doing, part 2 of exercise 2, you literally need to fold the foot pegs up out of the way so that you can power walk across the range without eating your shin bones.
Excuse me.
Not my favorite training bike, but again,
no,
appropriate for the market they're putting them out for, I think. We had when I was the RAM, I would guess that 25 to 30% of the students we had in the class had already bought motorcycles, and they bought Softails or road glides or whatever, which is, a road glide loaded up's a 1,000-pound motorcycle. So it's a good program though. The actual program I think is okay.
So Tony, I love being a rider coach, a contract rider coach with Harley Davidson. I'll admit it. I know I'm an MSF coach first and a heart and everything, but I enjoy being a HC coach. I enjoy it. I love the 500s. I love the bike itself. I enjoy the class. I enjoy the atmosphere. I find it very enjoyable. And now that we're doing E3 also everywhere at all of them. Last week was a very good experience. It was a great, some small things I'll miss about level 1 work, but mostly I enjoy level 2. And so now that I get to do level 2 and I get to do Harley Davidson at the same time on a regular basis, this past weekend was a pretty happy weekend. It was a pretty good weekend. So I enjoy it. I mean, I know some people do it just because it helps them get their hours in or get their clicks on their check marks or whatever, but I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing both, the state classes, but I really enjoy doing HD. So, and I enjoy I refuse to sign a non-compete clause. So I will not become an employee of Harley Davidson. I will always be a contractor with them.
Yeah, well, it's a great program. I think it's a fabulous program, but I'm not aware of a non-compete clause for rider coaches, and I was a riding academy manager for 14 years. I have a question though. Are you doing when you do the academy, are you doing the full classroom as per the academy, or are you doing the shortened version as per MSF? I mean, what are you doing in Alabama?
Okay, so we were doing, so Some dealerships have been doing E3 for a while.
Sure.
But the 3 that I coach at, that I bounced around at, we were doing level 1 work. So we were doing all classroom on Friday, finishing up some on Saturday afternoon. So we were only doing level 1 work. And so, which is, 5 by 5 by 10. Is that right? Yeah. Anyways, all those numbers. So we were only doing level 1 work, but now we have implemented, the whole state of Alabama has implemented E3. And so now we do, on Friday nights, we do the review. And so we do go through and we hit the reviews. So we're still getting, like I jokingly say, they pay that extra $50 for that Friday night experience, right? And so we do a review of their e-course, and then we do level 2 work. Of course, different, very COVID related level 2 work.
Oh, well, that was my question, because we've been doing the e-course here for, I don't know, since it came out with Harley and with the state. But with the state, there's a very shortened COVID program that you can roll through in an hour and a half in the classroom before you go to the range, that the state has been told we have to use. Whereas the Riding Academy, you have the review, and then you have, what is it, with the level 2 work and the video and stuff, what is 158 total slides that you have along with the level 2 work in the student handbook. And I'm assuming you're doing all of that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I mean, we're still doing it. I would assume, heck, if I taught a state class, I would assume I'd still be doing the same thing. We're just implementing a lot of COVID things, and then like the activity parts of it, they don't come within 6 feet of each other. The peripheral vision, the fatal vision goggles, all that is pretty much out, or actually not out, but modified. Yeah. But I think you would shortchange your students if you didn't do the other slides for level 2. I think that would be a very detrimental thing to your students, because that's where the conversations happen of, holy crap, I would freak out if I came to that 5-way stop with the cracked up pavement. And, if you shorten those, then I think you're doing a disservice to your students.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, I think with the Riding Academy, that the dealership here is doing the full program. So they're spending 4 hours on Friday night and a couple of hours on Saturday afternoon with the review and the slide decks and all the activities, minus a couple of things that require people to be close. But the state program has really been shortened. So just curious what you guys are doing. I like both programs. I like the Academy program a lot. Just the relaxed nature and the extra time that you can spend. So it really depends on the student.
Well, I would be interested in hearing how everybody is shortening that to to the hour and a half without seeing their students. I don't know, maybe Rita, Lynn, could you guys educate?
I'll go get the document.
Hang on a second, my phone's doing weird stuff here.
I tend not to shorten anything at Riding Academy because, like you, Belinda, I feel they paid extra for a reason, and I want to give them the best experience possible regardless, really. So I take what time it needs, regardless of what that is.
We are using the interim curriculum, which does not have all of the scenario slides, basically, is what's taken out. And it, basically that is review of stuff that's in their e-course. So it's not like they're not exposed to that. It does take away some of our opportunities to reinforce and discuss. So I just look for opportunities to do that within the context of the other activity sheets and when we're on the range, to bring some of those points home. So it's worked out well. I don't feel, I mean, I suppose for some people, seeing some of those scenarios and having the discussion is going to ring home with them better than reading it on their own, depending on how they absorb information. But I think we get enough of the gist across through our range content and the other activity sheets, because, you know, there's some springboards for discussion in those sheets as well to hit on some of those same topics. So I think it seems to be working out okay.
Yeah,
I'll be purposeful about going to a BRC then, just to be able to be aware of how everything is changing. So, because like I said, I don't do I don't get an opportunity to do that anymore. So I'll be purposeful. Thank you guys.
Well, yeah, this is just, this goes along with the e-course, but this is the MSF interim recommendation for MSF basic rider course and three-wheel basic rider course training level 2 classroom with the COVID recommendations, and it's in RiderChoices. And it's a document that you print out and hand out to the students, and it's incredibly shortened from the full program once you've done the e-course.
The way that programs have implemented that document seems to vary quite widely. For instance, in Minnesota, our state program is using those guidelines in conjunction with an actual in-class classroom, and we're still using the level 2 slides and the deck and the whole 9 yards. It's just that those close contact activities we're not doing. So we follow the interim pandemic guidelines with the slide deck still used as per normal for the most part. But I know that a lot of programs have taken that interim pandemic document and basically done exactly what it says, which the intent was that was going to happen out on the range so that you could avoid having students in classroom entirely. And those programs seem to have said that that's taking like 45 minutes or an hour if they just do it outside as written.
Yeah, here in New Mexico.
That's really short, in my opinion. I mean, I schedule 2.5 hours, and sometimes I have a double class. I got to go to paperwork and, you know, all that in, but we usually use most of the time. So, and sometimes we do it outside, you know, after we're signed in and such. It kind of depends on the weather and the mood and, you know, what people feel like. But I try not to shortchange it.
Here in New Mexico with a full class, they're doing it generally in the classroom. Takes about 2 hours.
So those of you that are doing the shorted version of them, what do you miss the most? What is the activity you miss the most because of COVID? The one that makes you go, stupid COVID, and every time you have to change it.
For me, I don't think that it's necessarily a specific activity, but I feel like not being able to use the small group situation the way that the level 2 classroom is intended really makes kind of getting the class to really get to know each other and getting to know the students quite a bit more difficult. And, you know, we have made some adjustments to try to do the best we can in sort of small groups, but the fact that the students aren't getting up out of their seats and working in small groups with each other on those activities, I think really has been a detriment, unfortunately.
See, and I put them in small groups. They're just 6 feet apart from each other. So it's just like a big spread out small group.
That's what I do too, yeah.
As far as the full shortened interim classroom without the slide decks, it feels so much like the rider coach is just lecturing. We don't have the slide decks and I can't think of the word, but all the pictures of what would you do and what do you see to drag answers out of the participants. We talk about a little bit and they answer some questions, and then we talk about some more, and then they answer a question or two, and then we talk some more. And it's just, I don't care for that at all.
Talk some more, Matt.
I already said I don't like talking more. What do you think about this, Robin? What are your experiences?
I don't know, because I have no idea what we're talking about. I left early so I could be here in time to do this with you guys. This is multiple plurals, it happens. And then end up 20 minutes late with no food in my stomach. So now I'm just watching you guys chat, and we're basically doing like a bad lip reading and figuring out what you guys are talking about.
Well, what does Sean think?
Sean, what do you think?
I think it's fun. I like to hear what the students think about what would you do.
You actually heard that?
I heard that. I don't know the whole context, but something about the level 2, I think I know what you're talking about.
Wow. Impressive, sir.
Frankly, I'm surprised that we don't talk about the classroom more. If we really think, safety is in the eyes and the mind rather than the hands and the skill of the riders. I'm surprised we don't talk about more having good, engaging conversations, making sure that we're making the right impressions and that sort of thing, and really getting the students to retain and buy into what we're selling.
Tony, do you feel like rider coaches buy into that to the extent that you would like them to?
I'm relatively new, only 3 years into this. So I don't know. I mean, I like the program because it doesn't tell you what you must do. It doesn't even tell you what you should do. It kind of tells you, why certain things are, and it leaves a lot up to your own discretion of what you will do and how you would balance your risk offset and that sort of stuff. And nobody's telling anybody that they can't or shouldn't speed, but when you do, you're making a choice. And I like that aspects of the program. So what do the instructors buy into? I don't know, but it's, in listening to the vRETS and listening to a lot of these conversations, we talk a lot about what goes on in the range, and I understand that there's a lot more variables, but it's like we kind of dismiss the classroom engagement.
I think the classroom is, I think we can use the classroom to be to lead our discussion points on the range. So that we have all these activity sheets in the classroom, which have to do with a lot of them have to do with, well, what are they doing now as car drivers, and then 2 wheels is different. So when we're out on the range, now they're on 2 wheels, and we can kind of highlight those differences and refer back. Hey, remember in the classroom we did X, Y, and Z sheet. Are you seeing how that might apply here? And you can kind of carry those discussions on. So even though it's shortened, we have opportunities to keep those ideas alive in their head, hopefully for when they leave.
When do you do those discussions, Lynn? I mean, when I'm on the range, we're reading off the cards, we're doing the demos, we're doing the instructions, so we do our reflection, and then we're on to the next exercise. So
well, we come back. Well, they can be part of the reflection. I mean, they're not long, dissertations. It's 3 or 4 sentences to get people thinking and get 1 or 2 responses and move on. We sometimes have to walk into position to see a demo while we're walking over. We could talk about how that exercises fits in the big picture. Now we're going to see stopping in a curve. Stopping in a curve is a little different on 2 wheels than it is on 4 wheels. So, there's some places where you can, conversationally reinforce the topics that you've dealt with elsewhere, and same with the e-course content.
And I agree with Lynn. I mean, when you add the word conversation, and like Tony, I'm also 3 years into this, right? But I'm a big proponent of, I'm so glad that I came from the BRC, BRCU. Like, I'm so happy that I got to start with the new curriculum, because I mean, it is my jam. I mean, all about some behavioral changes, right? I'm like, this is my thing. And my thing is definitely reminding people, So yes, we are rider coaches and yes, they're a student, but we're all riders too. There's a lot of conversation that can happen in that 2 minutes of walking from the classroom to the range. There's a lot, you've got some that I got to go to the restroom. Okay. Can I walk with you while you drop cones? There's a lot of things that happen in those short conversations too, that connect you with your student. And so I think taking advantage of anytime they can take a minute and ask you a question, or if they're willing to follow you while you're dropping cones, or, reflecting also on that. If you have the student that's embarrassed, that is nervous about asking a question in front of the class because they think they're going to look stupid or something, right? Giving them that short opportunity between the classroom and the range, or on the way to lunch or something like that, and opening up that conversation with them and that communication makes a huge difference in calming them down and getting them where they're going to focus and be able to use that classroom work on the range.
Well, something that I like to do, and I did it with the old curriculum before the update, is I split up the classroom. And there's nothing wrong with coming in and doing the e-course review, for instance, and doing the range rules and doing the range orientation. I don't have the slide deck right in front of me, but doing that on the first day, getting out and riding and doing the first day of the range, and then coming back and in the classroom, picking up in the classroom the what ifs and the activities. Makes it a whole lot easier for the students to relate it to actually being out in the real world. The old curriculum, that was a standard thing, was to break it up with part 1 and part 2. Part 1 was day 1, part 2 was day 2. If you talk to Ray Oakes, that was one of the things that they sort of designed into the process, was to make that possible to do that. So, I mean, it's all about engaging the students and getting them to think about what they're going to do out on the road. So much of it is having that interaction. In the classroom, I really like the idea of ask them to read the next thing and then shut up and let them do the work. Be a facilitator instead of an instructor. The less we talk in the classroom and the less we talk on the range, and the more we engage the students to do those things, I think the better the outcomes. Again, just my opinion. You have to lead it and keep it in parameters, but man, let them do the work.
Well, I agree, Maria. I think some people are better at it than others for sure. Usually when you talk to an MSF instructor and they want to size you up, they ask you how often you ride or what you ride, not how good of a teacher you are and what you've taught and what kind of training you've had in instruction or psychology or learning styles or adult learning methods and that sort of thing. I think in just my general impression, it seems like that's kind of getting short shifted, in a lot of these conversations that we're having.
Okay, I'll break the silence for a second. I'm cracking up at this Facebook post on the MSF thing about the dancing, and literally every person that has commented has been female. We're all like, yes, we dance on the range. So I thought I'd give that. That's cracking me up. The dancing on the range, or dancing, trying to get our students to pay attention and to make them happy. Where are you guys at, man? I want to see some dance moves. Robin, where you at, man?
I dance.
We used to have, go ahead.
I don't know, where am I? Where am I right now? Casa de la Mexicana.
Can-Am mask.
Yeah,
Rapping.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, but I totally dance on the range. My favorite time to dance is when I'm
Cindy Lauper,
riding.
don't lie. You listen to Cindy Lauper. I know this for a fact.
Yeah, well, no, when I'm riding the demo and not reading the cards for exercise 9, when we do the simulated practice for U-turns, I will go back behind the row of students and run side to side when we tell them, you know, turn your head and look to the left, and I'll dance behind them to get them to turn their heads as best possible. And I'll start doing disco or the wave or like the Macarena, and it's a riot.
We used to have a couple of ranges side by side, and one day we looked up and my boss was over on the other range, and the entire class was practicing golf swings with imaginary golf clubs. That was their stress release. We were like, all right, something's going on over there. It was very interesting.
Well, all right. I've eaten dinner now. We can start the meeting. I got myself a bird pooped Can-Am RT that needs to be washed, has no gas in it, and I got a job to do tomorrow. That's awesome. Whew. Anyhow, greetings from Memphis, Olive Branch, technically.
So you're back in Memphis. You're not here in New Mexico anymore?
Actually, I was in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Then I went to Paducah, and now I'm in Olive Branch. And then I'll be back in Paducah before going where? Where are we going? This field is probably riddled with dog poop. This is probably just a massive minefield. Let's do this. Easter, Murfreesboro, Clarksville, Easter, Madison, which is a suburb of Nashville. I got a buddy there. Somewhere in Indiana. Are you in Indianapolis? Missouri. No. It's southern Indiana. Couple places near St. Louis, Missouri. A couple places in Iowa, Illinois, back to my home, and then Wisconsin. And Mel Bolt will be doing Illinois, supposedly, and then Wisco and Iowa. Excuse me. Oh, Mexican burp. Iowa, Illinois. That tasted Mexican.
Robin, are you going to be in the Kentucky area around Derby time? The first weekend in May?
Yeah, no. That's I'll be gone by then. We leave May 1st. I've been to Derby though.
Oh, I'll be there. We're hopefully they'll have it this year, but I'll be working again this year, and so as I say, if you were still in the area, I'd take you to lunch, but well, at least dinner because Derby's all day. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Me and the wife are set up in what's it called, Grand Rivers somewhere. So if anybody's in that area during a break and wants to hang out by the campfire, I got some friends coming up down from Illinois, maybe some from Wisconsin as well, during the Easter break. So that'll be the hang time. Not done. Not done. That's perfect. You've got to have like 2 hours of material now.
Robin, you forgot your fancy branded mask.
Lynn, have y'all started back like going? in New York? Are you guys, I know some of you guys are still all snowy and
Well,
stuff.
there's still snow on the ground. The grass is starting to peak out. We usually get started at my Utica site in mid-April, and Watertown traditionally not until after graduation in May, although this year they're letting me get in a little earlier, maybe the beginning of May. However, there's this construction project on campus, so I'm only going to be able to be in Watertown in May and June. So I'm working now to see how many classes we can cram into those 2 months before they boot us out. They're making a traffic circle near to the range, and they need our area to, you know, house equipment and parts. And I don't know what it's all involved in making a traffic circle, but they need the range. So it would probably be a huge distraction anyway, because it is kind of right there. So that's where I'm at. I'm trying to figure out if I have enough. I've been waiting on bike parts that I ordered months ago, and I guess they're in a container ship somewhere. And I have no idea what the status. Every week I get a, oh, your stuff is still somewhere email, and I got to go and figure out if I'm going to have enough bikes to get all these ranges up and running at once. I might have to cannibalize and move parts around to make it happen. See.
Well, I hope you can get back to it soon.
Yeah, I was testing batteries today, making my battery order, so.
So here's something that I would appreciate your all perspective on. Do you think that a rider who expresses anxiety or isn't willing to take their motorcycle out on their own is a concern when that rider has expressed a desire to participate in group riding and just generally improve their skills? But just as a motorcyclist, what's your read on somebody telling you that they don't ever or haven't ever felt comfortable enough to take their motorcycle out independently, unaccompanied?
I would say I would use Belinda's technique of tell me more, because maybe the reason they're afraid to go out on their own, one thing that sometimes riders will say is, well, I'm afraid if I drop my bike, I won't be able to pick it up by myself. So if that's the case, riding in a group versus riding alone, I wouldn't have a concern. But you know, there may be other reasons that would cause me to give pause to you won't ride by yourself because of this, but you think I'm gonna ride with you?
Yes, thank you. That was exactly my line of reasoning, Rita. So will you elaborate on what would give you pause if it wasn't about I can't pick my bike up, which I feel like is a trainable skill for most people in any case?
I guess for me,
I'm confused by the question. But is this a student that you've had, a past student that's now riding, or is it? I'm sorry.
The circumstance is a student who was referred to me specifically wanting to engage in some private instruction. And that was kind of one of the, so the student, I was kind of trying to get into what some of their goals were, and then anxieties, which were characterized as there were some mishaps. And so I just kind of wanted to unpick that a little bit with this person. And so that was one of the things that came up that really I have been pondering ever since. And so that is why I desire your perspective, dear friends.
I would say it's likely that those of us who are here are passionate enough about coaching that we would want to troubleshoot how we could coach that student to the best of our ability and to the best of their learning ability. So regardless of what the rationale was as to why they didn't want to ride alone, but they wanted to ride with someone, we'd be able to figure out, a way to guide them to their goals. But with someone who wasn't doing more prodding and more questioning as to, you know, what's going on, what's the real concern, for just someone, you know, you see these posts on Facebook sometimes in some of the riding groups of folks saying, well, I don't want to ride alone. I'm afraid to ride alone. Who will ride with me? And you don't see that questioning. You just see either people saying, no way in hell, I'd never ride with you if you can't even ride alone, or yeah, sure, come join our group, without serving that person as well as they should be served.
Precisely.
Yeah, I think the person that is too, I'll say timid, maybe that's not the best word, but too timid to ride alone, riding in a big group is probably not the best place for them to be riding, you know. Say you know, one or two people just to kind of help them get over whatever it is that's keeping them back from wanting to get out there. I mean, there's people also who are, you know, initially anxious about driving a car by themselves, you know, and nervous about that. I had a woman once who had been a car driver and then got married, and her husband, they lived in New Jersey, I think, but she never drove. And then her husband passed away, and she moved back to New York, and she got a job, and she would have to drive to work. And she was like, you know, I have my license, but I haven't really driven a car hardly at all in the past 15 years. So we went out for some lessons, and we figured out her route to work. Let's figure out how you're going to get from your house to work. And we identified the problem areas and, you know, things to watch out for or ways to avoid those, you know, find a better route, and, you know, had to get her comfortable with the process so that she felt okay with going out solo.
One of the nice things about the Riding Academy program is that, you know, most dealers have a HOG program, and there's a program where we are, the dealership I work through when I teach for them, and they sign up as mentors, and employees sign up as mentors. And so if there's a contact through a rider coach or something like that, they can refer them to a mentor. The other thing the dealership will do is they will, they're up for purchasing additional insurance and doing remedial stuff on the range, where you can say to a rider that has,
hey, doggies,
say, let's just move up and let's meet at the range.
Doggies.
We'll see what's going on.
You all right, Jed? All right, so if I can get in on this one a little bit and, you know, scrap something up, I think that there's a very distinct possibility that every one of us who heard that question that Rita posed, or I'm sorry, not Don posed, that there are probably a lot of us who immediately thought of a particular student, but the question has so many non-existent ingredients that would amount to why they are timid or tepid in the first place with this, that there's really a lot more to asking why and hearing their response and immediately being agreeable. Like whatever their response is, just agree. Oh yeah, okay, sure. And then you can steer that in a direction that warrants a response that you can make good on. And I say that because we actually got a question to our podcast from a new rider who I think is just, he's young and he's kind of lonely. He wants to know people. He wants to be around people, and that's not easy to do right now. So, you know, like this, what we're doing here is always really beneficial because you're actually interacting. And I think he really needed that. So he asked, how do I meet people to have new friends and do this thing that I've learned to do with? And it's almost heartbreaking to hear. But the first thing my co-host, Travis Burleson, not a rider coach, immediately he was just like, call us up. Just immediately. Reach out. We are humans and we will interact with you. And that's just like one example of a student, a perspective, a need to be around other riders and get to ride with people. The other one could be like, because I want to follow your line 2 feet away through public roads, and then bring us all down over the side of a cliff like it's a bad action television. And that also, that's equally bad, which again comes to the question of why.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, that's all exactly why I'm asking. Exactly. And so it's interesting that, Lynn, you mentioned the driving a car thing, because one of my tell me more questions was, okay, well, are you anxious about driving a car by yourself, and what's different? And that was kind of hypothetical for this person. You know, I don't necessarily need to have that answered. I just wanted there to be some food for thought.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be gained by asking more questions. I wouldn't necessarily, jump to the conclusion that it's a deficit in training or anything. I could ask the question, how many people here have gone to the movies by themselves? And I suspect it might be a minority of people. This person may just enjoy the company or for no other reason. So I think you got to dig a little deeper to see if it's a confidence thing or some other insecurity and stuff. But I'm tripsing into Belinda's expertise here.
That's what this is about, man. And look, Robin, oh my gosh, you hit it right on the head, man. It's like one of my biggest pet peeves is when I hear someone say something like that, and then someone automatically goes to an answer, right? This is what you should do. Or, they tell them instantly the answer that they want to hear. And that absolutely drives me bonkers on anything I do in life. I'm like, don't give answers. Don't give advice. Ask the question. Ask the damn question. And yes, because I'm so bad about like scrolling those Facebook groups. And I'm like, wrong answer, wrong answer, wrong answer. Stop saying that. Stop saying that. And yes, so good for you, Robin, for not answering the question and for wanting to dig deeper. Good for you.
Yeah, I was telling somebody that like I could do the Oprah. It's been my experience. It's my answer. In my experience,
I find that sometimes, to say my experience, sometimes people have a lot of stuff they're carrying around with them about learning to ride a motorcycle. And, it's not unusual. Like I've always been told I can't, and not just motorcycling. I've just been told I can't, in any realm of things. And I think some of them have convinced themselves that they can't. And so learning to ride a motorcycle is a really big step. And sometimes they're having trouble taking that step.
So Lynn, when someone says, I can't, my favorite thing to ask them is, who told you that? They'll say, I tell myself that. I'm like, who told you that first? Right? Who was the first person? So anytime I'm working with, so if I'm working with somebody that's having a hard time with self-esteem, and they're always calling myself fat. Who called you fat first? Well, I'm the one that calls myself that. Who called you that first? Right? Who put that thought in your head? When was the first time you ever heard that? And when someone says, oh, I can't do this, who told you can't do that? And so, yeah, I love asking that question. Who said that to you first? Right? And then I'm like, and so are they here? Nope, dad's not here, husband's not here, wife's not here. And so, yeah.
Thank you all. All of that really mirrors kind of where my head went with it. And I feel like we're related often because of what you say being things that I was thinking. It's not a new rider. It's someone with a stated 20,000 miles experience, which, as we all know, that could mean a lot of different things. So.
Who was it that said 20,000 miles or the same mile 20,000 times? I forget who that was. I love that wording. I'm very prideful in my route planning and decision to ride difficult routes. But you'll have somebody who always likes to argue maybe bad safety logic. I've been riding for this many years. I've been riding. It was Rita. That was a Rita line. I swear to God.
It could have been. I've heard it too.
We had somebody year, 20 years, something like that.
I don't remember the exact circumstances, but there was someone who was kind of espousing how awesome they were. And my friend was on the phone with them and said, well, you know, lots of people have been riding for a long time, but if all they do is ride from their house to the ice cream store and back again, they really don't have a lot of experience. And apparently that touched a chord.
Easy chord is strong.
Yeah, I had a student in an advanced rider course who was bragging about how many hundreds of thousands of miles he had put on his motorcycle, but he couldn't ride any of the, I mean, he struggled a great deal to ride the exercises in the ARC. And he gets talking about how he rides the interstates to rallies. And that's where he puts all his miles on, is on the interstates. So trying to ride anything that was technical of any sort, really, he struggled something terribly. So yeah, it's what's the quality of the miles you put on, not the number of the miles. Same with, you know, people who brag about, oh, I've been teaching this many years and I've taught this many classes. Well, that's great. How many of them were actually good classes?
I think the quote Robin was looking for, have you been riding, do you have 20 years riding experience, or do you have 1 year riding experience 20 times? And I have a personal friend who I've ridden with now recently for the first time. He's been riding as long as I've been alive, and I'm 35. And as far as, you know, technical, like Rita said, technical stuff, I can run circles around him, U-turns, tight stuff, even some basic cornering. I ride smoother and, you know, maybe not a great measure, but more quickly, but definitely smoother than he does. And he's starting to realize that now and looking for some more advanced training. So it's good to see people seeing their deficits of abilities and looking to improve that. But there are so many people out there that don't. I've had students come through, you know, a student in a concurrent class with mine, not my class. He's a chaplain for the local motorcycle club. And he said, I've been riding for 30 years. And I asked him on day 2, and I said, did you learn anything this week? And he said, oh yeah, I learned this and that and that and the other thing. And it was awesome to hear how much he lit up after having been riding for 25 or 30 years or whatever it was. So it was really neat.
This kind of ties back to what we were talking about before about students looking to ride in groups or find people. That is an interesting thing that we should eventually discuss in one of these happy hours, especially if I have booze in my hand, but how to steer them in the direction of riders that will actually on the road, riders that are actually going to benefit them on a safety level. You know, the guys I got to ride with when I first started out, I was like on an 82 Yamaha Seika, and I was chasing all these guys down from the Suzuki GS Resources, and they really knew their stuff. And they made me feel like I had an opportunity to learn something. And, you know, if you didn't have the right safety gear, they gave you hell about it, which I was fortunate enough that I did at the time. But the point is, if anybody who didn't bring appropriate riding gear, they were all over that, like white on rice. You know, who the hell are you? Why are you not wearing a helmet? Why are you not wearing armor? Nice assless chaps. You know, it's like, just get some real gear, wear the right stuff. It could also be the flip side of that coin. Any rider could end up with, like, you know, we're going to go in a straight line and lane split with stretched swing arms, you know, for no reason other than to find out who's going to make it all the way through, you know. I think that could easily be a topic for one of these for a long, elaborate thing. Well, I didn't mean to make y'all stick around. I just sat down and.
That's one of my favorite questions or topics of discussion on activity sheet 10 is the topic of peer pressure. And I love when students get talking about that peer pressure can be positive, just as Robin cited, that when you've got peers who are saying, why are you not wearing a helmet? What's wrong with you? As opposed to peers saying, why are you wearing a helmet? What's wrong with you? It's great when the students have those discussions about how peer pressure can be good or bad.
No, I'm not saying we didn't misbehave. I'm just saying that we were safety minded.
Shh, Jason's back. Shh, don't talk about him now.
Yeah, Jason Herheim's Jason Herheim's powder coat factory is what it is.
No, I just went to go watch kid teacher conferences and rudely left my mic on, so God knows what my children were doing out here while I wasn't here.
We didn't hear anything, but now kids are watching Jason Rider Coach conferences, it looks like.
I was going to say, yeah, there was a lot of armpit farts, but that was from our end.
Hi, Michael.
Hi. Dad, you didn't get the milk.
Oh, yeah. It's hard to do that on a motorcycle.
You wrote that.
See, what you all don't know is Jason can't get enough people to work for him, so he has to raise his own rider coaches.
I just messaged him in the chat about working for him, and he hasn't replied yet because his children are important and stuff.
Okay, I see a Madberry that says any. Maybe there's more. Oh, there's more of it. Yeah, no. I mean, sure. Let's hope so. Got hosed in Sturdivant this year, so why not?
Call me.
Call me maybe. Okay. I came back out here and I'm surprised you're still all here. What kind of greatness is going on?
Tuesday.
Okay.
It's Wednesday, Robin.
It was an answer. I just.
Do we need to get you a calendar? Or?
Yes, you do. Oh my goodness.
Hey, I have a question. Are any of your sites or the people that that run sites buying into MSF's new e-course program where they're going to offer us links to hand out versus the previous e-course 12-digit alphanumeric codes that apparently some people aren't smart enough to use?
I think you needed to ask that earlier when more site owners were on.
We use Res for the sign up, so it just happens kind of automatically.
Jason, I want to say ask the folks at Harper College. I think they're using a website link instead of codes.
You could also submit that question to Don for the next program administrators meeting. That would be a target audience for that question, I think. All right, gang. Well, I don't want to get in trouble with the boss, so I'm going to shut us down. I'm already in trouble. We're 10 minutes over. Thanks, everyone, so much. Awesome conversation. I just appreciate the heck out of all of y'all.
Thanks, not Don.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. See you next time.
Good to see everybody. Thanks.
Have a good night, everyone.